So grade A, grade B, grade C, grade double D or something. But the 2012 election really changed that, because what happened was the shadow council very strongly took sides. And the way it was perceived by a lot of people on this elected council was that there was this split. And this split has become sort of a litmus test on both sides. For starters, on this side, there are people who perceive that election as one in which only the people out there, the ones who were trying to get into council, did bad stuff. And there are people out there who believe that only people who are on this council did bad stuff. And it honestly reminds me a lot of, I don't mean to sound demeaning, but in certain ways we all don't grow up. And it reminds me a lot of teaching 14-year-olds, because you could never convince 14-year-olds that they had any responsibility for creating any of the problems that had occurred between two groups of people or two people. They were always convinced that the other person needed to apologize to them, and they didn't have to take any responsibility, and that they needed to be apologized to, and they didn't need to apologize to anyone else. But from where I sit, I don't see it that way. I think there were people on this council, people on this side of the room, who did some nasty stuff, or allowed some nasty stuff to occur. And I think there were some people in this council who were not faithful to one another, and who broke trust in ways that were not necessary. And that has created a lot of pain, a lot of angst. And that's spilling out tonight and over the last couple of days. And I think that some of the things that were done on this side of the room were very nasty too. And I don't hear anybody taking responsibility for either of those sides. If I talk to one side, all they can talk about is the bad stuff you guys did, and when I talk to you guys, all you can talk about is the bad stuff these guys did. So what's the fallout? You're seeing it. There is a greater distrust on this side for any member of the Shadow Council. And to be more pointed, Mr. Shire in particular is not to be trusted. He is one of those shadow politicians. In question tonight, Mr. Shire was not only held responsible for comments he made as a citizen, he was held responsible for comments made by the deputy controller. I don't know how you can win that. It's a catch-22. There's no right answer. If you're on the Shadow Council right now, no matter where you have been on the spectrum of beliefs that you hold, just like us, no matter how different we are, you're all being seen the same. And it's not fun. We don't like it when you do that to us. We don't like it when you assume that it's all a done deal and we're back there, figuring everything out in advance. And what you're going to see is some act, some performance. It's unfair. It's unfair for those council people who attempt to be independent, and it's unfair, I believe, tonight for Mr. Shire. Because basically we're saying to Mr. Shire, some of us, we know what you have said in the past as a citizen, so we know what you will do as a controller. But isn't it true that people learn how to compartmentalize their lives? Aren't those of us up here different because we are in politics? Don't we speak differently about our views to our husbands and wives than we do here up on the dais? Don't we understand that we have to follow different laws now? Do we want to be judged for what we did and we said when we were 19, 25, 30 before we were elected? I don't want to be judged for those things. I don't even want to be judged for some of the stupid stuff I said when I first got elected. Well, I didn't know what I was talking about. So I think that's the problem. The problem is, can you remove yourself from your private, personal experiences? Can you remove yourself from something in the past? And can you do the right thing? Can you do what you're supposed to be doing as part of your job? Can Mr. Shire be controller and put aside his personal beliefs And can everyone on council be council members and put aside their personal grievances? And can they vote for the best candidate for controller? I can't speak for everyone, but I don't want to be subjected to further litmus tests. I don't want to be told by anyone out there in the audience that there's 3 people I can vote for, and if I vote for anybody but those 3 people, I'm corrupt. I don't want to be told that. And I don't want to be told by anyone on this place that if I don't vote for a certain person, I'm not their friend anymore. I'm not loyal. I'm not Karen Dolan up here, I'm Councilwoman Dolan. And George, you are a great guy. And I think I told you once, I hope you think about running for city council. But, you know, I have had 3 conversations. You're a smart guy, you've had a great education. But even after hearing all the great work that you did for that wonderful businessman, and even after hearing everything about your confidence, you're just not as prepared. You're just not as prepared as Mr. Shire is, in my opinion. There's no shame in that. You're 30 years old. You should run for council. Everything that you would bring, we need. But I can't vote for you because I know in my heart that there's a better candidate. And that's my job. And I'm not taking anything else into consideration. So I'm sorry, I won't be voting for you. But I respect you greatly. That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dolan. Ms. Blinsky, any comments?
I've been around since '93, since I myself ran for mayor, and I've been paying very close attention to everything going on. And I know, I'm completely convinced of who I'm going to vote for. It's the best candidate. But I won't say till we vote.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. All right, we are set. This is a regular, this is not a regular meeting, it's a special city council meeting. So we will run our roll call in the old-fashioned way, starting alphabetical from the beginning all the way through. If we're set, one moment. I will remind council that it will take, there are 6 votes, that it will take 4 votes to declare a winner tonight, so we may move on and vote on a resolution under agenda item 4. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Blinsky. We're voting for the candidate for city controller?
City controller, yes, ma'am.
Right. I vote for Mr. DiGiacinto. Ms. Dolan.
Bill Shire.
Mr. Donches.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Yasso.
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Yasso.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Shire. There we are. Yeah, there is no action. The vote again is 2-2-2. We end up where we started, where we ended up last time. Before running through, obviously this is my comments about the process in general. It's a difficult situation being 2-2-2. 6 members voting with 4 candidates nominated, needing 4 total. It is going to be difficult to reach that resolution. So I'll ask each candidate to please review each of the candidates, consider that fact, consider options, alternatives that will allow us to reach a resolution this evening, if that is possible. Other options down the road, of course, are the courts. I think we need to consider the fact, looking at the court system, while it is part of the process and a possible solution, I think we should do what we can to take care of this ourselves. We have timing issues if we rely to the courts. We have a matter of choice taking out of the hands of Bethlehem residents, quite possibly, if we move it to the courts. So, while I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote, I certainly understand it's a unique situation we find ourselves in. It's sometimes healthy to have a disagreement. That's certainly what we have. We're quite log-jammed up here. We're log-jammed real good. And a couple of us have strong views on our candidates. So before we take any further action tonight, I would like us to run a roll call and see if there are any other thoughts or any changes. Will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Polinsky,
Mr. DiGiacinto,
Ms. Dolan,
Bill Shire.
Mr. Donchez,
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Mr. Raschuti,
Mr. Yasso.
Mr. Reynolds,
Mr. Yasso.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Shire. The vote is again 2-2-2. There's no action taken. Any comments from council? Open it up.
Mr. President, just a
Councilman Donchez.
question for the solicitor. Mr. Spadoni, could you take us through the process if this were to go to court? Would the president judge make the decision? I guess it would go to Northampton County Board, I would think.
It is my understanding by it is my understanding by statute that the situs of the city of Bethlehem, although present within both counties of Lehigh and Northampton, that Northampton is the home court, if you will, and the site is for action such as this.
Would the president judge McFadden make the decision, or would she assign it to a senior judge? I mean, based on your experience, do you have any idea how this may go?
My experience would be, after 35 years of doing this, that I would be presumptuous to conclude what the court would do. The only certainty I have is the uncertainty. It would be submitted to the Court of Common Pleas. I would be sure that the court would review that, whether that be the president judge or a panel of judges, and set the process pursuant to the third-class city code.
Would the president judge look at all the candidates that submitted in a resume or a letter of intent to be considered for controller?
I think that would be part of the petition, that if the 10 elected voters would submit that, I think that should be part of the submission, that what was considered by city council, certainly.
Thank you.
Now, that, if I could just amplify that just a bit, I don't think they would be bound by that. Certainly, there may be a predisposition in that regard, but the court has very exclusive and expansive authority.
May I ask a question about, does that mean, because there's a little glitch in that, we had a certain number submit, and then one withdrew, and then one was nominated from among council. Do the original nominees go, or do those original nominees plus whoever was nominated by council?
It would be my suggestion that council, if the petition would be filed, should submit all of the names and then indicate who was nominated. I think they should have that information available. What they do with it, however, is their prerogative as a judge.
Mr. Evans, may I inquire of Mr. Spadoni?
Mr. Raschuti.
Mr. Spadoni, is it your opinion that possibly one of the 6 candidates who applied would not be chosen, and a 7th candidate who did not apply might be chosen?
It's a possibility, yes. It would seem to me that if that information was given to the court, that these people were interested and there were nominations, that there would be a weighted consideration of those people. However, the court is charged with acting appropriately under the facts and circumstances as they perceive them. And again, I would not speak in any way for the court in Northampton County as to their process or their decision.
They follow the same timeline that we do you know, Council President? They follow the same
I was asking the same
timeline?
question.
There is no timeline set forth in the third-class city code. I would suggest, in practicing law with a number of the judges for a number of years, that this type of decision would be almost very quick. That they would not sit on this, given the the severity of the issue. Frankly, they would not want to be subjected to criticism that they were slow.
Thank you.
Sure, Councilman.
I just want to be clear. Mr. Spadoni, correct me if I'm wrong. You said that, I think you said that the court could possibly select someone that would not even be part of the 6 that sent a letter of intent, correct?
Yes. That being said, I would think that that would not occur, but the only certainty in the practice of law is the uncertainty.
Councilwoman Dodges. I'm Councilwoman Nolan. This way, that way.
Been called just about everything now. Okay, but you did mention, Solicitor Spadoni, that they would be following pursuant to third-class city code. So they would be looking, would that mean that they were obliged to look at the same things that we were obliged to look at? A person that lived in the city a certain amount of time, that had this job and was a competent accountant, as, you know, are those, is that what they're bringing to the same requirements?
The court would be required to appoint someone that would have the qualifications as set forth in the third-class city code. Now, as to who the best qualified person meeting those qualifications is another issue. But they would need to be 21 years of age, they would need to be a resident of the city of Bethlehem for 1 year prior to their appointment, and they would be required to reside in the city of Bethlehem during their tenure.
You used the term, you said the best of those. Is that the standard that they would use? That okay, this is the minimum and you're looking for the best?
I would suggest that, yes.
That's what one is supposed to do, okay.
I would think that would be their goal, yes,
As
obviously.
opposed to just saying, well, they're all good, so this guy. I mean, they're going to be looking for the best.
I would suggest
Okay,
that,
all right.
certainly.
That's exactly. At this point, it's pretty clear that we are not going to reach the resolution tonight, item 4 on our agenda. So I would ask for a consensus of council without going to a vote or necessarily getting a motion at this point, at this time. Is it the will of council to meet again and attempt to reach a resolution? Or is the will of council that we would look to move this to the courts? And before I do that, I might ask Solicitor Spadoni to weigh in on that, whether you feel there should be another attempt made, or do you feel if this is something that we agree on, that we should send it to the courts as it is, so we can move to fill the role of controller, which is also a concern.
It has always been my practice and my pleasure, frankly, to not weigh in on the will of council. As you know, I've never been asked how anyone's going to vote, and I would resist that totally. That being said, it would seem to me that an apropos comment given by the dean of the council and our former president, Mr. Donchez, that council should do everything within its power to appoint a city controller prior to going to court. I think that was a well-versed comment. Mr. Sanchez, if I may, I just need to amplify my answer to your previous question. Let me read to you the statute on the vacancy of the clerk's code. If by reason of a tie vote or otherwise, such vacancy shall not have been filled by the members of City Council within the time as limited herein, the Court of Common Pleas, upon the petition of 10 or more qualified electors, shall fill such vacancy by the appointment of a qualified person for the portion of the unexpired term as above provided. I read that there is no limit on who can be appointed other than they need to fit the statute. If they need to be over 21, they're a competent accountant. They resided in the city. That makes a comment.
Well, that troubles me, to be very honest. I would suggest, Mr. President, just my own point of view, that maybe we could meet Monday after the Human Resources meeting, prior to the Human Resources meeting, and step back and reflect for a couple of days. Because I think, as I said the other day, it is the responsibility of this council to select the next city controller. And what troubles me is that if it goes to the court, it could possibly be, maybe the odds are very slim, but a person could be selected that did not apply. Am I correct in saying that? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donches. In reviewing available dates, I know there's some issues with advertising as well, and letting this meeting be known. The zoning hearing board is in here tomorrow. Members of council have all indicated they are available to meet on Monday. The meeting is set for 6, yes?
Correct.
Chairman Rashida confirms it. The Human Relations Commission meeting is at 6 o'clock, so we could set, if we have a motion to adjourn, to a set time of Monday, February 27th, at the adjournment, or after the adjournment of the Human Relations Commission, which may be in and or around, I don't want to lock you in, because the 6 o'clock meeting may be expected to take an hour, if we say 7 o'clock, or following the adjournment of the Human Relations Committee. I think that'd be fair to do. Also, following the conclusion of that meeting, yes. Yes. Okay. You have comments on that, or would you like to make a motion on that?
I'll make a comment, although I'm willing to make a motion, but I will make a motion on that. I think something that might be helpful is if people gave some thought to, if they absolutely could not vote for their first choice, then who would their second choice be? And maybe if somehow or other, I don't know, Mr. Spadoni, you'd have to let us know if that, how that kind of, casual polling might be completed, if it can be done to the city clerk or something like that, so that we can see if there's movement in there somewhere. Because it's one thing to not want to give up your position, but it's another one to see right in front of you if your position is not going to go anywhere, no matter what movement there is. I mean, if I know that there's no one else who thinks as Bill Shire as their second choice, then I know I have to change my vote. Even if I knew that, I don't think that will happen. But I mean, I'm certainly hoping it doesn't. I'm using myself as an example. I mean, it's more important to me that we do the best job we can to decide on the best person. So, if you really had to, who would your second choice be? And then maybe in that we might see some movement. Perhaps you could give us some feedback on that after looking into it.
We need to follow the sunshine law.
It's true, but isn't polling different than voting?
I would ask that the secretary or our clerk or myself or anyone else not be involved in that. You are certainly entitled to have discussions among yourself, but not by groups of 4 or greater.
But it would be okay with the sunshine law if we pass some casual emails letting each other know the answer to that question, if we would all agree to do that? and some might not do it, but if I just, for example, send an email saying who would be your second choice to each and every one singly, and then I would know and I could announce it.
I would find that to be objectionable if you all agreed to do that, because then that would be action by council outside of a public meeting. You certainly can exchange emails between each other, and those that do, may do that. But I would strongly recommend that there be no indication that as a group you agree to do that each. That would constitute official action outside of a meeting, and I find that to be volatile with the open meeting law and the sunshine
Totally
law.
understand the distinction that you're making, and I appreciate the distinction. Okay, so I would make a motion that we adjourn and meet again on February 27th? Yes? At the conclusion of the 6 o'clock Human Resources Committee meeting, that we will meet here in council chambers to further discuss the election of a new controller for the interim.
Outside.
There's a motion and a second. Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky,
I agree.
Ms. Dolan,
Aye.
Mr. Donchez,
Aye.
Mr. Raschuti,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye. All right, we will not make it to item 4, resolution on our agenda. Before we move to public comment, I want to take just a moment to thank the candidates again through this process. I know it's been difficult for a number of you, and we continue to not come to a conclusion, which is a goal for us. But thank you for all your work in this process, your dedication to the position and to the process. We will then move to item number 5 and the final item on our agenda this evening, public comment. This is open to any public, any city process, subject to a 5-minute time limit. Is there anyone that would like to address council? Mr. Grubb.
I didn't move, 2420 Henderson Place, in New Grove. I admire you all for your convictions. But I have a question. If this is not resolved by March 1st, and it needs to go to the county, does it go to the county court? Does it go to the county court based on a council request? Does it go to the county court? I'm trying to understand what the solicitor was saying earlier. Does it go to the county court based on a request from residents of the city? How does this process work?
I have been this route before. It is 10 qualified electors. By petition, it would be my suggestion, if it was not reached on Monday evening, that I would ask council for authority and authorization to file the petition and to obtain the requisite signatures for filing.
This is, I think, Councilman Donchez, Solicitor Spadoni, we've probably been around the longest. This is uncharted territory. I'm sorry, and Councilwoman Belinsky too. I hope you can find the candidate on Monday. But sitting out here, it's not looking real promising. So I hope that that you're ready to go if we hit 222 again on Monday. I'm starting to think that might be a good number to play in the lottery. Thank you.
Mr. Berenice.
Al Bernitas, 1004 Johnston Drive. I've been biting my tongue for 2 weeks, but I guess a couple of points. Mrs. Belinsky, this has been a very tense meeting, and there are a group of people that go to Perkins. Mrs. Polinsky is one of them. Mr. Shire is another one. And Mr. Fenning's another, and once in a while I go too. But I just wanted to assure everybody that Mrs. Polinsky doesn't talk to either one of those guys when we're there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, another comment. Now, that was supposed to get a laugh, but this is very serious tonight. I wanted to come up here and really not be negative, because it's very easy to throw darts, and I know a lot of times that's the way they come here, okay? I would like to point out this fact, though. There are 7 members of council. That means that every person, each person represents 14% of something. And I think we need an egg timer up there for council members. Because I'm tired of worrying about my 5 minutes. Now, I guess if you get elected to office, you can just ramble on until you're brain dead. But I just think we need an egg timer for council. Now, they do it in Congress, and maybe we should do it here, okay? Because I think everybody can make their point in about 2 minutes. And in particular, Mrs. Dolan, I'm referring to you. Okay? Now, we get a little tired out here. And I would also appreciate maybe being able to have a tete-a-tete, like we used to have before it was public comment. Because it's absolutely silly to not be able to get an answer. But Mr. Spadoni had to get an okay to respond to Dana tonight, to get a clarification. So, is that the way it's always going to be?
Thank you, Mr. Veritas. Mr. Intalix?
Stephen Antelich, 7 Ridge. I'm a looking around, but I don't see Franz Kafka. And he was a brilliant author, and his expertise was theater of the absurd. And Mr. Kafka, you're seeing a perfect example of this. The other thing is, how many of you have seen the movie Catch-22? And in Catch-22, the squadron commander, Colonel somebody, is imploring Mr. Yassarian, who is trying to prove he's insane so it doesn't have to fly. And the rule was that if you say you're insane, that means you're not insane, because insane people want to be insane. So if you don't say anything, you still fly. And the idea being, the colonel then approached him and said, Mr. Yassarian, why don't you love us? Why don't you love us? And council people, we love you. But we just like to express our opinion because our opinions reflect our view of you based upon our elected officials to do our business. And sometimes we compliment you, sometimes we don't. But we don't have to love you. And I just wonder how many points in psychology, credits I get for psychology and sociology, because there's more information in those areas rather than what is required for a controller. So, Mr. Kafka, it's a shame you're dead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Intalix. Mr. Shire.
Bill Shire, 1890 Eaton Avenue. I have two comments on council rules that I was saving until after the controller process was completed, so as not to pollute it in any way, but this seems like a good moment to make them since I'm still a citizen. The first is a misconception in Farley. As Councilmember Dolan mentioned, I was at both meetings of the Special Committee on Rules, and Mr. Reynolds was at the second meeting, even though he wasn't on the committee. And neither one of us voted, of course. But there were a couple of changes made that have been misunderstood, at least temporarily. One was I shouldn't say we, although I was a full participant, when the change was made from courtesy of the floor to public comment. Councilmember Dolan pointed out that there's an ambiguity in the word floor because nominations come from the floor for council president. Courtesy of the floor is everybody in this room. And she said that some people thought on the basis of that people anywhere in the room could make nominations for council president. So the decision was made to change courtesy of the floor to public comment, which is what it is, and that was the reason for it. The other change that was made was to insert the words to the chair, that during public comments were made to the chair. This was a practice, first of all, it's required by Robert's rules. Secondly, it was just putting into the council rules what had been happening in the years previous. All comments went to the chair. And so that was not a change either. Now, it's the prerogative of the chair whether or not to, if you will, deflect these comments, questions to members of the administration. And that has always been true too. And if the two people who are chairs and have different views of this, that's their prerogative. So I just wanted to emphasize to all that there has been no change in that aspect of council rules. The second is a change I'd like to see. It doesn't have to be done right away, but I thought it was something that was done in committee, but I guess I was wrong. The idea of the process for electing president and vice president of council, it was discussed about extending it to electing an interim council member, an interim controller, an interim mayor, or an interim treasurer. That hasn't caused any difficulty in the present process, but I think it would be a worthwhile change to make for the future, because then without that addition to the rule. The Roberts Rules would rule, and there is, as you may recall, a process in Roberts Rules in addition to a roll call vote. There's a process called viva voce, where the candidates are announced one at a time and everybody votes aye or nay. And that has some obvious disadvantages. In Robert's Rules, they say this is a good process for a very large convention, and that may be so, but doesn't prohibit the use of the process in a body such as this. And I think it's something that you would like to rule out so that any future elections for any interim posts of any kind would be following the process you're using tonight and the process you use for president and vice president. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shire. Mr. White?
I didn't have the opportunity to see the first special meeting, but to observe tonight has been interesting to watch. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it all, and I see that, you know, if this went to the courts, I don't think it would be the end of the world, but at the same token, I sure hope that doesn't happen. And I'm certain none of you do either. I think it says a lot for our city if our city can solve our city's challenges. And this is a big one. 5 votes have been taken and no movement has been made. So clearly each of you have very, very strong views, either in favor of a particular candidate or very strongly opposed to the other two. It's one of those 2 options. But from either of those perspectives, it's quite evident that for all 6 of you,